right, welcome everybody to another episode of At Witt's End. I'm Ken. That's Carson. He's 6,000 miles away, 9 hour difference,
And waving.
and waving. Correct. It is it's still morning on the west coast of the United States, and like I said, Carson's 9 hours away in Upper Austria in Linz, and so today we're going to discuss. Well, we were on a hiatus for about 2 weeks, and the reason was I was on a cruise, my first ever. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about it since I was a Virgin cruiser. And
Not he didn't. He didn't actually go on Virgin cruises. He
no,
went on a different cruise.
when I say Virgin, I mean I've never done it before. So, and believe me, everybody says how great they are. It was good. We chose Celebrity Cruise Lines.
Yeah. So let's start with the basics. So
Okay.
so you chose Celebrity Cruise Lines. Where did you depart from, and then where did you
Well, first
arrive to, and then how
let's
long was it?
let's just say I chose Celebrity because we
Okay.
I think I looked at various cruise lines, European cruise lines and US based cruise lines. Chose Celebrity based on recommendations from others, basically saying that Celebrity had their shit together.
And
Um,
and like kind of the route.
Price.
So
Yeah, the route.
well,
For the timing and the route basically is what it came down to. And me being cheap and you know, we're not making money at this podcast. So nobody's paying for the cruise. So money was a factor as well. And especially since it's your first cruise, you don't know what you're getting into. So I was asking a lot of questions. So the
you,
route. Oh,
you
go
went
ahead.
middle of the road for not a low budget cruise, but also not a luxury cruise. So
Yeah, I mean, we've had people want us to do the California Ensenada trip, just a cheap cruise. I've kind of stayed away from that because it basically sounds like a drunken bachelor party on a boat. So, uh, your mother, it was her birthday gift. She wanted to go to Europe and hit some ports or see some cities she's never seen before.
she wanted to be a seaside Mediterranean for her birthday. I
Yes,
think
yes,
that
and
was
and I had
fundamentally.
been wanting to go up the Adriatic for a while, but and so that leads me into the one we chose. July. It's kind of a vacation month in the U.S., and I'll have some comments about that in a little bit. Uh, it we chose it left July 1st from Rome, and it's a 10 day cruise, 9 night cruise, something like that. But it hit a lot of the ports that she wanted to go to. Obviously Rome, but we didn't go into Rome right away. Rome, Florence, and you're going to say, well, Florence, that's inland. You're right, it is inland. The port is called La Spezia, I believe.
La
Uh,
Spezia or something.
Spezia, yeah. And we did not. Well, it hit there, then Portofino, Sicily, Toronto, not Toronto, Canada, Toronto, the
I
port on the
I'm
heel,
curious. Yeah, I'm curious how that's actually pronounced. So
Toronto.
Taran- Taranto.
Everybody
I,
said Toronto, even the excursion folks, and they would also make the comment, not the Canadian city. So
so it's
basically,
pronounced
Toronto is
like the
pronounced the
same.
same. Yeah, I could be wrong, but everybody said it like
So
Toronto.
so real quick, you started north. So for everyone, you
We
started in
left
Rome
Rome.
and went north.
Yeah, and let me make my first comment on the port of, and I always get it wrong,
Civitavecchia.
Civitavecchia. It's a long
Civ.
word.
There's a V in the beginning.
Yes,
Cive.
Civitavecchia. Close enough. So it starts with a C. It's a port city. It is, I would say, probably an hour from Rome. Rome
Yeah.
is inland. You got the airport. The port's closer to the airport. So we did not go into Rome. A lot of people do the Rome excursion, have celebrities set it up, and then go to the port. I actually really liked the town. We went in early, got a hotel right in the port, took the train per your advice from the airport to the port city. And, they were having some small festivals. It's a nice little port town. I could spend a week there. We walked into the city plaza, found some great local restaurants, had some fantastic Italian food, listened to some music, interacted with the locals. So I would say that little port town, thumbs up. It's not Rome. You're going into a little port town. Um, and then the next day, not being a experienced cruiser, didn't really, how do we get there? Do we walk? The guy said take the bus because all the cabs are already taken, and the bus was fine. I had not exchanged any euros yet, so they only took cash. So take a few euros. Um,
That
it
goes
was
without saying.
Yeah, I was a little paranoid about getting, there on time and everything. So we were way ahead of schedule. Everything went great. If if you had been traveling, in the United States, we had a lot of cancellations, delays in domestic travel.
Why I feel like so you say that, but didn't you not experience any of that? Like
We
on
had
any of
none
your
of it.
but on
That's
on any of your recent travels, because you're a heavy traveler,
no,
I don't
no.
think you've never experienced in
I,
like the recent weeks that
well, yeah, there was some coming back from the East Coast, but nothing like no, nothing like
yeah
people have.
only stories and but no firsthand experience.
Yeah, but I will say I did overhear and listen to some people, like grandparents whose children were coming in from Atlanta or Indianapolis. They did not make the departure day, so they had to catch up to the cruise. So there were people that didn't make it. That
It's
said,
pretty. I think that's normal.
yeah, I think so too. My first impression, obviously a big boat. I was very happy with the cabin itself. Like I said, we went pretty cheap. We didn't get a balcony or anything. We got a big window. Um,
Porthole.
and basically, your mother, has motion sickness, so she was worried about that. And everybody said get something in the middle of the boat and you know go lower, center of gravity thing. I don't know if any of that's true. And quite frankly, he didn't spend a lot of time in the cabinet other than sleeping.
Yeah, I mean technically per physics, it's true. Like the lower you go, the less it'll sway one way or the other. But it's such a
Yeah,
big boat. It's not. It's hard to unless you get really rough seas, you won't really notice
yeah.
it.
The only time we really felt it was in the back of the boat, I think, on when we're out at sea, cruising, sitting down, listening to music. But I will say, the first night, well, actually, I think the second night, I had trouble sleeping because freaking, I thought kids were going in and out of the cabins next to us. And talked to the customer service folks, and I said, hey, if it happens again, let us know. And then I realized it wasn't kids running in and out of their grandma and grandpa or uh, parents' room. It was the employees' door to their cabins. It was at the end of our hall going down into their lodging. And because I sat there and I got up one morning, I saw all these people coming in and out. I realized, oh, they're the ones slamming the freaking door. So one bit of advice to celebrity or any cruise line: have a quiet door somehow. So
Put a sign on it. Don't
yeah,
slam.
yeah.
All right, so back to so you went north, um,
To Florence,
and
they say Florence, Pisa, but
and
it's
so you've been to the northern part of Italy. That's the only portion you've been to, correct?
well in the
At least
last
recently. Yeah,
within recent memory, within the
yeah.
last 10
Within
years.
within the memory that you would actually remember,
Yeah,
it
let's
was
say the last 10 years.
yeah. So you've been to northern Italy. How was it going back? So did you revisit some of the towns you had previously went
Well,
to?
we went back to the villages of Cinque Terre, which anybody who watches TV and travel shows knows the little colorful villages on the side of the hillside, on
On
the
the sea?
cliffs. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a rigorous hike up and down. We had done it before with your brother when we drove through Italy. Uh, I will say they also had excursions into Florence, and your sister went to school in Florence. And I thought, wait a minute, Florence is in the middle of Italy. How? And I listened to people. It was like a 2 hour bus ride, I think. So 2 hours there, 2 hours back. So I had no desire to do that. It's July, it's hot, sweaty, going to Florence, and then Pisa too. If you ever talk to anybody that's gone to Pisa, there's
The
nothing there
ones
but there's one tourist attraction, the Leaning Tower, bad architecture. So
one stop town.
I guess you got to see it. I've seen it. Not that big a deal. Everybody does the picture with their hand holding it up or something stupid. It's an Instagram photo. But we went back to we did 3 villages in Cinque Terre, and we had been to, I think, 2 of them already. But it was nice because we hiked up into the vineyards and stuff too. And we got there early enough. There were no crowds. and kind of like the Lake District in Austria, there were not busloads of Chinese and Japanese tourists again. So the crowds weren't overwhelming, which I was happy to see.
There were busloads of other tourists from
Actually, there
another
weren't.
country. Well, from another country, because you were a part
Yeah,
of those busloads.
Americans, but it was a small bus. So, yeah, we
Anyway,
were the Americans invaded Italy. Let's put it that way in July.
yeah. So you
Uh,
went north. You went up to all that area. Then you headed south. So I think if I remember right,
well, we hit Portofino, and
Rufino.
the
Yeah.
three jewels or the three pearls of paradise. And for those of you that don't know, Portofino is it's a billionaire's hangout.
The
I
whole
think Mike,
area is.
yeah, Michael Jordan I think, has a place or a yacht. They were naming off all these celebrities, and going in there, I immediately think of Below Deck, the reality show about crews on billion-dollar yachts, and the yachts were gorgeous. I was taking pictures of the yachts and the village is great. They warned us about pricing, but quite frankly, I haven't seen the inflation that the media says is going on globally. I don't see it there. Prices were reasonable. Um, it's a small village, Portofino, very high end, gorgeous homes up in the hills. Definitely, I would say, a must do. And then we also went into Santa Margarita and Rapello. Both very beautiful locations, and I would say definitely I would go there again.
All right. So then you headed south. And south is what was I guess new to you guys, right?
Yeah, well, especially since the stop was Sicily and Messina, and looking at some of the things they wanted you to do. I forgot, Costa Nostra, the mafia. It's the home of the mafia. There were multiple excursions to follow in the footsteps of the Godfather, which I did not have any desire to do. I've seen the movies. I don't need to go there. But I did learn a little. I didn't realize that Messina had been kind of wiped out by an earthquake in the early 1900s. There was a tsunami, so the architecture is not like it is in other parts of Italy. Uh, didn't realize the mafia really started in the vineyards of Sicily. They controlled the vineyards and the wine market, and that's how
The
they kind of
olives.
that's how the families got started. They controlled the wine, the olives. So it was interesting. Had a good time. Went into Messina, walked around quite a bit, enjoyed it. Um,
So I
so
assume
yeah,
the boat went through the strait right there between Sicily
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
the toe of the boot. Right.
yep.
I was actually genuinely surprised because I know a lot of the cruise ships do that, especially because this one the cruise ship you're on was flagged in Malta, so it is technically a Maltese boat. Um,
Yeah, which
but
you argued with me about. Celebrity is a U.S. based company out
but
of
the boat
Miami.
is not. But the boat is
Yeah,
not.
no, I
It
don't think.
you were
Yeah,
you were under
everybody
the
registers
legal.
their boats. Go look
You're
at any container ship in the world, and none of them are registered in the United
There
States.
is actually a single U.S. Registered cruise ship, and it has the
Oh,
American flag on it.
was it
One boat.
Princess
No,
Cruises?
no, I can't remember,
Celebrity?
but it's a single boat, and it has the American flag on it.
Wow.
But that's it. But yeah, so you were on a Malta boat, and even you were going through there. I knew your stops anyway, but I was kind of surprised that you guys didn't stop in Malta, um, since it's somewhat on your route that you guys
Not
were going.
really. No,
Yeah, it is. It
Malta's up.
was No, Malta was straight through the port when you go between Sicily and
I'll have to look and
um
see.
when you go between Sicily and um the toe. If you just go a little bit right, it's just south of Sicily is Malta. But it's a pretty common stop for cruise ships like that do that. But yeah,
Well,
so then
I would have liked that. So,
so so then you yeah another country also. Um,
well, I hear a lot of good things about Malta. So,
anyway, so you hit the left a lot around the boot. So where'd you go after Messina,
wait, I'm looking at Malta.
south of Sicily?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so you hooked the left after you got through that strait between Sicily and the toe.
Yep.
Where did you go after there?
Toronto.
That was Toronto. Okay.
Yeah, and it's right in that arch before the heel. So I think they're trying to promote that area quite a bit. I think I heard the captain talking about it. It's not a common port, or it hasn't been in the past. So they're kind of building it up. Um, and, they have a historic city. And then we actually went inland to, what's the town called? Matera. And went to the UNESCO site, which it's the Sassy district, SASSI district. It's a UNESCO designated location, and it was educational, and basically they're sandstone cliffs that these very poor Italians built their homes in. Yeah, and you know how say something like a town like Santa Margherita Portofino, say there were definitely pirates there, but the fishing industry came back and you built a house. 5 years later, you add on, you build up. In this city, Sassy, they build down. So the oldest homes are at the top of the walls of the cliff, and as you add on, you go further down you dig further and further in, and up until I think they said the 60s or 70s, it was populated, and no water. Animals were housed inside with people. I think the second oldest Catholic church is there, dug into the hillside, and the frescoes have. They used to store manure and fertilizer in there as well in the homes. So a lot of the frescoes have degenerated and turned green. It was definitely interesting.
Interesting.
Now
And that's what I think a lot of people
now it's all
um
Airbnbs.
yeah, a lot of people don't know is that southern Italy is the poor part of Italy, especially as you go inland. And I
Yeah,
know, like, especially this tourist season, the Amalfi Coast is like the thing for Americans to go to in Italy. Um,
yeah,
but
everybody
southern
comes.
southern Italy has long been much poorer than northern Italy. And as you go more inland, it is even more poor. So you do get a lot of these like old towns that are still um, haven't been like, I guess, updated in a certain way. And I guess that like the one you were at kind of keeps the what it was like and what it still
Yeah,
see what it was like.
and I mean, I didn't realize this, but to keep your UNESCO rating, you get kind of, it's a three strikes law, and one of the problems there is a lot of those homes that were dug into the cliffs to make it profitable and survivable, because they relocated all the people back in the 60s and 70s, and now it's, I don't want to say gentrified, but a lot of them are Airbnbs, and so there are cars there, and they're not supposed to be cars there, and so when the UNESCO inspectors come, they get marks against it, and they've already got two strikes, so they could lose their UNESCO ratings.
Interesting.
But I doubt it will affect the tourism, because they were having a celebration of something, the Madonna. You know how Italian towns celebrate every religious
Yeah.
holidays, and they were putting up
Yep.
lights, and it looked really interesting. I wish we could have been there during the celebration. And they make a special bread there. It looks like a dinosaur crap. This thing, it's about this big, but the bread was really good. The food was really good. So I would say definitely a sight to see. It's pretty spectacular.
All right. So enjoy. So you enjoyed the heel of Italy.
Yeah,
You enjoyed
yeah.
it. All right. So
Great
after
sunsets.
yep. So at at that point is when you left Italy, correct?
Yeah, we went around the heel, day at sea, going up to Montenegro. And
Yep. So I think
for
this
those of you
was
that don't know, it's the old Yugoslavia. Um,
so from what I presume from what you've told me, this was your favorite part of your trip. Am I
yeah,
correct?
it is spectacular.
So where did you stop? I mean, I think it's the one stop in
Couture.
Montenegro.
Yeah, I mean, there's
Yeah.
other towns, and we went inland too as well. But you will debate me on this, but you go up a fjord that the captain called it a fjord,
Yep.
and the mountains crash into the sea. It is spectacular. And then they have like little villages on every little point. Um, it kind of reminded me of, like I told you, Hallstatt. which is an UNESCO site. But it's reminded me of it in that there's villages with a
Right
church
on.
steeple right on the coastline, right on the water, but pretty spectacular. Even your mother said, "I could live here." Cost of living is fairly reasonable, but you're definitely isolated. It's still, it was once a communist country, and they're still coming out of that. And
It's
go ahead.
it. I was gonna say it's at the point probably Croatia was at a number of years ago, probably.
Yeah, everybody's kind of hyped on Croatia right now, which they should be. It's a great country, wonderful spot, great beaches, historic. But I would say Montenegro is kind of the next up and coming.
Yeah.
And a little bit of trivia. I really want to find out who this guy was. I think I mentioned to you. We went inland to a Montenegrin farm and had some grappa, some wine, some farm raised ham. Just had a really good time at this local farm. But on the way there, this Porsche SUV, a white SUV, cuts us off. And I look in, it's got California plates. And the license plate frame is from Rockland, California, which shocked me. And I mean, I wish I could have followed the guy and found out what the hell are you doing in Montenegro? How did you ship your Porsche here? It's not a Porsche they would have picked up at BMW because it already had the California registered plates on it. So they shipped it from here or there for some reason.
Well, I hope they didn't pick it up at BMW because that's a Porsche.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant Porsche.
Yeah. So yeah, it could very well be they still have the plates on. It's an insurance auction purchase because it's very common for Eastern European countries to buy insurance vehicles from the U.S. But the fact that it still had the plates
And the
is
guy looked like an
interesting.
American. He had his Callaway golf cap on.
But so that was the highlight. You would suggest people to stop there if they can.
Yeah, I would go back and spend a week there as well. I enjoyed Montenegro. Visually, it's beautiful. The food was good. The
I
old
guess one of
fortress
the
was
hard
good.
parts with Montenegro is it doesn't have a ton of coastline. It's not a huge country, uh,
It
so it's
has a ton of coastline, but it's cliffs. I mean, you're basically going up into the
well, no,
fjord.
it doesn't have a ton of like it's just a small country, so there isn't just like a lot
Yeah.
of coastline. It's just
Well, I think the population is 700,000.
yeah, it's just a small country, and
The whole country is a major city in California, kind of thing. You know,
yeah, not
which
even
which is kind of nice.
yep.
So
So yeah, after Montenegro, you go up the Adriatic Sea into Croatia. So you
right.
finally get to visit Croatia.
Again, a beautiful country. Had a very good time there. I think that's did a lot of shopping there.
You did
What do you
shopping
call
in
it?
Croatia. What did you buy there?
Just clothes, t-shirts. I think I almost bought a watch at that antique store I told you about, or was that a
Uh,
couture? So, but yeah, enjoyed it. Great food, great people. It definitely was a little more crowded in the fortress there. Going back to Montenegro, I did
where where
notice
where did you
uh,
stop in Croatia? By the way, you didn't mention
Split. I'm sorry,
split.
Split. Yeah,
Okay.
I will say it was interesting the diversity difference between you kind of cross the line in Montenegro. A lot more Arabs in full dress saris, the burqas, and they were touring around, and not so much in Croatia, which I found interesting. So you had
I
definitely
well
more of a North African influence in
I
Montenegro.
well there's a pretty clear reason for that, and this is my pretty clear reason. I can't say for sure why, but Montenegro is not a European Union country.
But they do use the euro.
Yeah, but they are not an EU
They're
country,
not.
so
They are
that
not.
is a big um
And
they're
I'm trying to remember the reason they told me because of the economic collapse. Oh,
they're can't
they were part
they're
of Bosnia, Serbia.
they're a candidate nation right now.
Yeah,
Um, so they're very close, but they are not in country. So I think that's a big reason why why you
but
saw a difference there.
I also think that another reason is they are a fairly new nation, and because they were part of Bosnia Herzegovina before, and then got their independence. I want to say like 15 years ago. I can't remember the dates, but fairly recently.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I mean, they've been, the
And the whole region is
Serbian
a
War, Yugoslavia. I've told you my family used to go there, and for when it was Yugoslavia for vacation, it was a great place to go.
just that whole region. Everyone knows the powder keg region of Europe. I mean,
Yeah,
long been kind of a hectic region, but it
it's been fought over by
seemingly,
everybody from the Ottomans to the Habsburgs to the Romans, and
yeah, the connection point between worlds essentially. But
it's
it's
the passageway into Eastern
yeah,
Europe.
so,
So
it's been calm for a few years, but there's definitely still some going on there. But
yeah,
um, so you ended didn't end in Croatia technically, but your
well,
last day
yeah,
trip was Croatia.
yeah. The last, well, it could have been Venice, but we've been to Venice, and I didn't want to go back in July. But
Kind of not Venice, and that's
well,
I
yeah,
think a good
that
point to
would
bring
be
up
my
now.
and I'm going to. So basically, we left Croatia, and you basically sail across the Adriatic to what they list as a stop in Venice. And if anybody's visited Venice, you know that cruise ships have been an issue there for decades. It's a city basically on water, so they have to deal with a lot of things. And the wake of a cruise ship, even barely moving, can do a lot of damage. So big cruise ships, I believe, have been totally banned. I think smaller ones can still go.
I
Um,
don't, yeah, I don't know that. I don't think they've been banned. I don't. Maybe it's a size thing, but I know cruise ships are still there.
yeah, but I think they're the smaller versions, and I think they're limited. So what they've done is they've moved to a port called Ravenna, uh, a little bit further south, but it's not a little bit further south. It's a lot. And I overheard some passengers saying, because we had booked a train. Well, we went
That
to
was
the
the
train
meeting
station.
point. Yeah, so
Yes,
that was the meeting point for me, and I actually flew into Venice and took the train down to Ravenna, so I know exactly how long it is.
how
It's
long was it?
just about 2 hour train ride.
Everybody
Um,
said when I said what's at least a 2 hour bus ride from the port into Venice. And they said, come on, 2 hours? It's probably 40, 45 minutes. I go, I don't think so, because the train rides, I
no,
think, 2 hours.
I mean
And
you have
people
to.
people didn't realize that.
Yeah, you have to go north to Bologna and then over to Venice. There's no like direct along the
Yeah.
coast, and you could definitely drive it. It's probably quicker, but you're not gonna be driving usually out of Ravenna.
And I will say Ravenna, no disrespect to the city. It is not what a Civitavecchia,
Civitavecchia.
Civitavecchia is a much nicer port town for a tourist.
So
There's a
someone
lot of industry in Ravenna, and I know someone
s-
told us that there's a lot of things to see there, but
someone said that the highest percentage of UNESCO World Heritage sites or outside of like Rome was
are
in
there.
Ravenna. I was a little bit shocked and surprised. I did have the chance to walk around the city a little bit. It had some nice spots, but most of it was pretty meh. Let's just say
Well,
that. It's
but
just
between where the cruise ships dock, and there's nothing there but a concrete uh, dock. It's all industrial, oil production, container ships.
yeah, I know it's a big port, like a industrial port.
I did notice one of the marinas was packed with sailboats, which kind of surprised me. So there's definitely a sailing community there. But as far as like going there for tourism, I don't know. That's something probably people need to investigate a little more. But
Yep.
forewarning, it is a long way from Venice, so be
Yeah.
prepared.
Yep. So that's the point where we traveled back over to Rome, but we'll save that for another episode. But we'll kind of wrap up with your overall thoughts of celebrity cruise lines.
Yeah,
This specific trip you took, your favorites, your least favorites.
well, I want to give a shout out. The celebrity staff was excellent. It's an older ship. We have some friends going on it later in the year, and they were asking me about it. I was disappointed in the pools, and I mentioned earlier July travel. It's easy for us to travel in July just because it's kind of that month where everybody vacations here. But on the flip side, it's when everybody vacations here. So Rome, Italy was basically invaded by the Americans. I would say probably 70 to 80% of the people were American. On the cruise ship itself, I was surprised the amount of Brits, Scots, Irish, a lot of Aussies, quite a few Aussies, um, Kiwis, not a lot of Germans or Europeans on the line, but mostly Americans. I was
And
just
there's a reason I will say because it is a celebrity cruise ship, which is a American-based company, like you're saying, and so I think the Germans or the Austrians would go through like a TUI,
yeah,
TUI, which is
which we had looked at, and I'm kind of glad, at least for the first cruise, we didn't book a European cruise
yeah.
because
So
then the language barrier.
for those that don't know, TUI's one of a few different large travel agencies within TUI's a German-based company.
In the EU.
And they book like all your stuff for travel, from the flights to the hotels. They even have
Great
their own.
pricing.
Yeah, it's all inclusive. Typically, they do cruises, they do resorts, they do everything. And so, but they wouldn't. I think celebrity, so it's not surprising.
Mhm.
And but they also worked out of like the UK, so but given that it's an American slash English cruise line, it's not surprising that it was mostly English people.
Yeah, and I was kind of glad because I think we had talked that I'd looked at using TUI, and if I'd have booked a cruise with a Greek or a Italian or even a German liner, the language barrier probably would have been, you know, we could have worked around it, but it wouldn't
Well,
have been easy.
most do English. It's just kind of the
Yeah, but I did notice some of the
fundamentals
other
of it.
smaller cruise lines and some of the ports, there, there, there wasn't a lot of English being spoken. So I will say celebrity. I think we were on the Constellation. It's an older ship. Um, I'm not a big gambler. Your mom did a little gambling. The casino reminded me of Laughlin, kind of like that old casino, kind of like the old strip in Vegas. Um,
And
shout out.
that's the thing. If it was a U.S. flag boat, it could not have a casino.
So there you go.
That's
That's
why they
why.
do Malta.
Well, also, they got to be in international waters, and they have to be in international waters 12 miles off the coast for the stores to open up, which I knew about, but didn't even think about.
Yeah,
Some of the negatives, I would say, you look at cruise ships and you see all these the advertisements show the pools look really luxurious. They're metal boxes that are painted and put on the decks. At least on this cruise ship, I was kind of disappointed in the pools. Um,
food.
they had, well, first let me go through the pools. They had a small, kind of like a kiddie pool, like 4 feet deep, and then they had basically as a container, square box with it's about 6 foot deep of water, and then they had an indoor spa pool. But God, I must be getting old, and traveling in July means you're traveling with a lot of American families. So there were kids everywhere. And, they're not supposed to have kids with diapers or kids taking food. There was this one kid had a soda, drank a soda, just left the can floating in the pool. And I just wanted to throttle a kid. And it's hard for the crew to keep up with that. They had a guy watching, but I wish they had an adults only pool, quite frankly. That sounds like kind of an old fart kind of thing.
I mean, you are so.
Yeah, I'm old, but I would have. There were a lot of honeymooners, so if you're in your 30s, I think you would want that too, or even late
But
20s.
you gotta. They have that stuff. Like there are adults only
I know.
cruises.
So
I.e.,
that's something I will think about in the future.
Virgin Cruises does it.
Yeah, and I would also probably not travel in July, probably the fall,
I guess
May, April,
for
spring, and
for a
fall.
cruise, I mean that like July is kind of the time to do a cruise, right?
Yeah, but it was there were plenty of people, but the entertainment was good. There was a woman that Cece, I think her name is, came on and did a tribute to Aretha Franklin. She was spectacular. Some great comedians. I wish I could remember their names. Uh, the regular daily music. There was a guy named George from Mexico. Spoke with him a little bit.
It
You know,
wasn't Cole.
no, no,
Yeah. Inside
it was
joke
it.
for between like three of us that know it in the world.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Jorge. Then how's that? But God, his last name, he starts with an L, and I can't think of it. But I think he listens to the podcast now. But I liked him because he was definitely a musician's musician. He was into his music. He tell he was sincere. He went to the Music Academy in Mexico. But I did find it interesting. Most of the music on there was Latin. I think there were Peru, Argentina, uh, George was from Mexico, but they did have a rock and roll band from Ukraine, which I found it. We didn't listen to him a lot. Like I said, I think George was my favorite just because I liked the way his arrangements of music, and he was always playing the Sunset Deck in the back where we'd hang out and have drinks and eat. So uh, the crew itself,
Well, let's get to this. So let's get to your least favorite things. So you mentioned the pool.
yeah,
Anything else that you really didn't like?
I was kind of disappointed in the food. Um, it was we ate mostly at the buffet. We did go to a sit down reservation type restaurant, and I said, okay, I'm going to order so and so. And the first thing I ordered was a shrimp cocktail. I thought it's got to be better than what they have on the buffet, which was little tiny shrimps in a glass with a little bit of cocktail sauce. And then they brought the shrimp cocktail, and basically instead of a buffet, the waiter, it's like he went down there, brought it up to the sit down restaurant. So I would say it's kind of like a Vegas casino, mid level casino
It's all
buffet.
coming from the same boat.
Yeah, the same kitchen. I mean, the food was good. I guess it was adequate, but I was a little disappointed in it. Um,
You think
but
that's relative to what you paid for the cruise? I think.
yeah, probably. And,
Yeah.
we didn't want to spend a lot of money at the upscale restaurants on board, which granted should be better. But based on the one restaurant we did go to, I was like, it wasn't that much better. I'd rather spend it on a Michelin star rated restaurant, which we did eat at. That was named Mickey's, and had a fantastic meal. But there was no loss for food. The drink packages, if you're going to do the drink
Stamaz.
pack, yeah, you got to book that ahead of time. We decided not to do it because we thought, oh, we're not going to be on the boat that long. And then we got on the boat and they convinced us to do it. And then we got the bill. And what I thought was for both of us was for one person. So I stopped that right away and got that refunded. And if you don't do a drink package, you pay for it on your own. And the only drinks you get are basically water out of a dispenser and some juice. So basic coffee.
Not
So
bad.
I mean, there are things we are learning. There are a lot of uh, went to try and play pickleball because they quote had pickleball, and that was kind of disappointing. Um,
What?
I
Well,
would
I saw the torts. You showed me the torts. I mean, was it disappointing because there was no one to play, or was?
both. I think it needs to be promoted more, and I would say,
I mean, you're a nerd about pickleball, so I think
well,
your
no,
opinion's
it's
a
a
little
fast.
bit.
Well, you were too when you were playing it. Now
Yeah, but I'm
you're
saying you're a little extra about pickleball, and you don't need to be extra. And most people are
but
just casual
I
about it.
think it's a great marketing tool for somebody like Celebrity. And I would say Ernest, who was the cruise director, great guy, very, very professional, very good, very funny, entertaining. Got to give kudos to him. A pleasant guy. There were two things I would say I would add to the ship. I would enhance the pickleball, and maybe even there are people that would go on a cruise just for pickleball. I would improve that pickleball court for those days at sea. The
Can't see
second,
me. I'm laughing
yeah,
about
I
it.
can see. Yeah, the second thing is I would add a cigar lounge, which I think you could appreciate with little high end cocktails. They have those shops. They're trying to sell you high end watches and art,
Uh,
which I went through the.
high. Air quoting high end here
Well,
because
yes, okay. So they had some Rolexes that were pre owned. Uh, I looked at a couple Orbis, some Tag Heuers. Yeah, I would say mid level luxury watches. Would that be a good enough explanation
yeah,
for you?
yeah, yeah.
And the ladies' handbags and the fashions, and that whole thing.
Well, and I think that's ship dependent. I mean, yeah, you're on a mid level cruise, so I think it makes a lot of sense. If you're on a luxury, a luxury cruise having
Yeah, I think you probably.
luxury stuff would be different.
But I thought
Um,
about it because I was going, well, it's a no smoking, but then I found there's above the pool is where all the smokers hung out, cigar smokers and cigarette smokers by a bar. So went up and had a couple cigars up there that I purchased, some Italian cigars that were terrible, by the way. But
they're different. Yeah,
when you're going to the celebrity theater, you would walk by. I can't remember what they call it, Stevens Club or something. I think it's for the regular cruises that make the highest level of loyalty
yeah,
points.
yeah.
maybe I'd see 2 or 3 people in there. So they had a nice bar, nice seating, TV screens. I thought that would be perfect for a cigar lounge or a cigar bourbon lounge, and maybe even have it on a deck somewhere, where it's venting out into the ocean. Even military boats have that, where cigarette smokers can go out, and it would be an additional source of income for the cruise line as well.
Yep.
So
All right.
that would be
So
my advice. Add that, but overall, I would give them
yeah.
if it was 5 stars, I'd give them 4 stars.
Yeah. So not bad. So overall, you enjoyed it. So you would give your recommendation to people.
Yeah, I think Celebrity's a good cruise line, great employees. The Constellation, maybe a little older boat. I hear there's a couple new ones out there supposed to be fantastic. I think they could improve their quality of excursions as far as the people doing them. Um, I heard some people talking about some of the other cruise lines they felt had better excursions. And I will say the Viking cruise lines is what people said are more educational for their excursions. Yeah, a little more money, but overall, I would
Pay
have
for
said
that.
Celebrity was a good value for the money.
All right. So we'll end with one last question. Where's your next cruising destination since you're now a cruiser?
We are not cruisers, but we will go again. We've already been invited by some friends to go with them on a Caribbean cruise. I don't know if we'll
Caribbean.
do that. I would say this: I would love to go to uh, the UK area, the Nordic countries, and everybody that takes the Alaskan,
Scandies.
yeah, Scandinavian cruise line. Everybody that takes the Alaskan cruise says that is the best and most phenomenal. But I could see the Scandinavian countries. I would also like to, maybe Tel Aviv, that area of the Mediterranean,
Well,
and
on
down
that
into
bombshell, we'll end it here
the
with
bombshell.
I just wanted
So,
to say that classic top tier. But anyway,
yeah.
all right. So yeah, so your last one was Tel Aviv, but you have
Greece.
you're liking Greece, so you like cruises, so you probably want to hit one again in the future. So shout out to Celebrity Cruises. Hit us up if you want us to do a sponsored cruise. And then for those listening, thanks for listening. This has been episode 32 of the At Wits End podcast.
So cheers, and to anybody on the Celebrity Cruise Line listening, especially George, thanks for the music.